The plan was to have you guys introduce to one another and have a tour of this wonderful space that has been created. Talk about your works, how these have been created, and talk about the Dystopian Visions option and show that we had in Milan and now here in the Metaverse.
I am still in Milan.
You're still in Milan?
Yeah, I am blocked in Milan. Milan has...
You're in the Metaverse.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have Bruno just to share a few words about the auction and the Dystopian Vision operation as the auction coordinator, and then I can take over, introduce the artist one by one, and we can have a tour around, so you guys get to see the space and the works.
Okay.
Sounds good to everyone?
Yeah.
Super. Cool.
Okay, so once again, thanks everybody to be here today and to have been present previously in the Milan exhibition and during the webinars. We're really happy at Cambi to have been able to work with you and to come up with all the organization and all the things we've been able to create together, because we think that it's very important to try to help the artist community, trying to make a bridge between the real world and the virtual world. So the exhibition in Milan was the starting point, and then we had webinars, and now we have here the exhibition in the Arium space. I would like to thanks again Dan, Jason, and all the team from Arium space, and as well Zach from Super Air, all the team from Super Air has been really helpful, and Serena that just been so great in making the collection, and you guys that you've been working hard to come up with these wonderful artworks, and all these people made it possible to have a great collection, and we're really happy about the drop we already did and the drop that will come in the next days. So it's a success already, and I'm so happy to be part of it. And now I will leave the speech to Serena that will introduce all the artworks and the collection concept, and I hope you're happy with what we've been able to do in such a short time, and reaching lots of people into the metaverse in real life. Thank you again.
Thanks, Bruno, and thanks to all the artists and Arium for hosting the exhibition. So we're here today in this space, which is also a dystopian space. So as you can see, there's a pink sky with bubbles floating around. Also just checking that everyone can hear me fine. So this space has been created with a sense of like dystopian, utopian vision that could also welcome all the works that you see in the space. Every single work is being created in collaboration with myself and the artist, in constant communication with me and with Bruno. So I'm very proud of this collection, as it really captures, I think, the essence of what artists' visions are into the future. The selection of works has also been very personal, I would say, to the artist, because everyone had a very specific view that I think we respected and we tried not to influence. So we've been embracing everyone's view into what a utopian and or dystopian future we could imagine. So in these works, which are unique 18 works also minted on the Super Rare platform as NFTs, you'll see what the artists have envisioned for the future. Also, you may notice that these have been arranged in the space in couples, and this also reflects how these are being proposed on Super Rare during the auction. So the auction has started already last week, and so far has been received really, really well. And we have a few more days to come where we'll continue to present the works and auction the works. We also wanted to say that the collection is not ending here, but it's, going beyond what we've presented. So we have the expectation of showing the works again in real life and potentially again in the metaverse really soon. We really want the collection to keep traveling and to be seen by as many as possible. So we can start our tour, and since we have the wonderful companionship of the artists tonight, we can also have them explaining how they worked on every single creation, explaining a bit about the techniques and what their vision into the future looks like. So you can join me by heading to the first work on the left. So you'll see there's a description about Dystopian Visions and the collection. And we can start with Fabio, who I will invite to join me next to the work so that you can tell us a bit more about the creation of this wonderful sculpture that is so colorful. And yeah, Fabio, welcome.
Thank you, Serena. Hi, everybody.
So can you tell us a bit more about the creation of this work and how do you see the future? What's your vision into the future with this work?
The idea, my idea of a dystopian vision here was really to explore how things are changing right now. My work is very much focused on the idea of technology and how it has an impact on us in society and in culture. My background comes in sociology, anthropology, digital sociology, anthropology, and I've always been fascinated about how media change society and how society change, technology. And here the representation is like a very classic statue that comes from the Louvre, and now it becomes actually a point cloud that is generated with all these kind of like colorful pixel pretty much, and they are kind of like downloading and moving around. I've used some data from the Ethereum blockchain in terms of price points that inform how this sculpture moves, but also the sounds comes from this data as well. So everything is kind of generated and been using a software called Touch Designer that helps me to just iterate and create these kinds of installations, kind of like a digital representation of the statue itself. So there is a bit of like a behind the scenes story here. Like this, just imagine for a moment these collectors, they are traditional collectors that usually they collect things that from museums, and from galleries. Now for the first time they are collecting data, they are collecting kind of like digital representation of art, and so how the value of rarity and the value of art is changing itself, but also how the collectors are changing, and then the idea of collection. So that's why it's called data collector. Is a new kind of collector that instead of like putting stuff in the house, they are actually putting stuff in their hard drive or in their metaverse. So that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have any questions, please ask.
Much, Fabio, for this introduction to the work. I have to say that when Bruno and I looked at the work as the full collection came together, we mutually agreed that this work had to somehow come first because it had, a number of meanings that really looked into traditional art and into the future of what art could be like in the future. And so we wanted to sort of initiate the auction and this dystopian vision with something that could be so solid together and so well created and defined, but that at the same time it could disappear. And so the meaning of having this work as kind of like an opening work into the dystopian collection was exactly to enhance that kind of view that the artist proposed for the dystopian collection. So thank you so much, Fabio, for telling us a bit more about the behind the scenes on this work.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Wonderful. So we can move on. We can carry on our right-hand side. So continuing here, we have Luca Viola that has presented a very iconic work, I would say, because Luca has merged something that could look like arte povera, you know, something that could be, you know, a simple construction that sees some bricks and a golden frame that reminds of a Baroque period. But then at the same time, when we look closely at the work, there's a whole other story going on that is made of networks and nature at the same time. So I was truly fascinated about this work because it does merge and frame a vision into the future that somehow is still framed in an actual wooden frame. So tell us a bit more about your world, Luca, and how you came up with this idea.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. And yeah, my work here, that's why I was thinking, like in the future, like artworks or, you know, interacting with the viewer, and they're more like, you know, dynamic. They're not just static, or they keep on moving, and also kind of represent the evolution of art. Like that we go now more into digital, you know, that's why I all like those pixel kind of like more future that come out from the past. And yeah, that was my main idea, and I hope it, you know, it got through. And yeah, that's that. And yeah, for this work I use Houdini mostly, and yeah, I'm not get great explaining myself.
I think, Luca, you've created an amazing works that, you know, when people saw it actually in real life, when we had the exhibition on in Milan, a lot of people asked questions about this work because they could really appreciate the fact that somehow add a frame to what art is considered in like contemporary art these days, but at the same time connects with a vision that is completely out of the box. So it's kind of like framing something within like very defined limits, but creating an expanded vision that goes beyond our imagination, and that, you know, in which anything can happen within those limits. So everyone was really fascinated about the controversy of having something like limited, but at the same time so immersive and endless. So thank you so much for your creation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Next to this work, we found it, you know, sort of like organic, progressing with Mattia Cuttini's work, which I have to say I can connect on a very personal level, because as you can hear, this work also includes sound. So if you step close to the work, you can also hear this background sound, which is quite, you know, reminds of the sound of rain and organic nature, and what you may experience when you are meditating. So by looking at this work, you can really have this kind of feeling of getting lost in what Mattia is used to create, which starts with like photocopying and starting from actually raw material, getting onto digital and into AI creation. So this work was created with the use of playform.io, which is a platform web and a team where Mattia has also been an artist in residence. And what attracts me about this work is the fact that Mattia, for the first time, is introducing bright colors, which is something fairly unusual for Mattia's style.
Grazie.
So Mattia,
sono qua dietro, sono dietro di te, sì. Non vado vicino, I cannot go too much near to the artwork because it sounds very loud, and so I can speak from here. thank you for the introduction. Thank you for being here to enjoy this artwork also in the metaverse. That every time you can see an artwork in a different place, in a different media, is happening that it's also different. So for me, it's really great to have you guys here, and it's a pleasure. What you can hear and you can see is something completely out of my brain, and it's something completely new. And I hope that you will enjoy it, and we will find a way to lose yourself in this pulsing map that keeps flowing. I
We
finished.
definitely can. Mattia, I think it's a very meditative work that
Yeah.
really sort of leads us to the next one, actually, that we wanted to
Yeah.
present next to your work, which is
Yeah.
the tapestry that we see just progressing on the circle here.
Absolutely.
So we have
Absolutely.
Manuel's work. Do we have Manuel in the room? Manuel, yes. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
So this work that you've
Here
created
I am.
reminds me, honestly, when the first time I looked at it, I could see the surface of a planet, you know, imagining by closing my eyes and imagining what a new planet could look like in the future that we may colonize or other species may colonize. I had this vision, and so every time I look at it, I look at this tapestry that really could be the dynamic surface of a planet that keeps changing. But what's your vision into the future, Manuel, and how did you come up with this tapestry dynamic work?
Oh yeah. This is not the first time that somebody tells me about that, because from if we can look at this artwork from far away, we can kind of see this planetary vision that you suggested from afar, or geographical region in movement or something like that. But all in all, this is about a collection of data, of my memories, of things that I've collected over time, from sounds to simple photos, to videos and such, that I have decided that they were worth to. It was worth to have an investigation about these things, because in the long run, they accumulated so much during the years, and I thought it was a beautiful thing and something that needed to find a way to represent those things. Um, so because I tried to convey all of this into a sculpture, because my traditional training comes from sculpture and traditional art. So that was a very nice experiment that I've done.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. I can hear you from far, so I'm not entirely sure where you are right now, but I could hear most of it.
Serena, because there is okay. I fixed it. I didn't know why, because I was trying to push to come farther away, but it was pushing me back. So I was constantly pushing W to come near you.
Oh, okay.
Now it's fixed. I'm sorry. I
Sounds
didn't
good.
know what happened. I have no idea. Now it's fixed.
That's okay. I could hear most of it. I hope everyone got a feeling of what Manuel was describing with this work, which is so mesmerizing and very beautiful to watch. So thank you so much for bringing this vision into the future.
Thank you so much, Serena.
We're now moving on to a very, again, iconic work that I would say belongs to an entire future vision, you know, and these are the Clods by Fabiano Speziari, which is also here with us tonight. So I'm very familiar with Fabiano's work, and I've been one of the very first fan, I would say, of Fabiano's work. And what I love about the work is that you may not notice this, the Clod are created with tons of pixels that Fabiano puts together. Those are like tiny blocks that create these clods and those places that people will inhabit in the future. And the vision that Fabiano brings to the dystopian visions is that people will be extremely lazy in the future, and they will live in those blocks that are scattered around the universe, or God knows where. You know, we can imagine that the Earth has exploded and those clods have continued existing with people living in a very lazy way. And so we can notice those banners on top of the building and drones flying around and delivering goods and food or anything we could imagine. And everything has a self-contained life, but all is disconnected. So what fascinates me personally about this vision into the future is that everything seems so close and so connected and so crowded, but at the same time, it feels extremely disconnected from any form of life that we've known. So the social aspect and the disconnection coexist in this work. And that's what Fabiano is been bringing into the vision, into this dystopian vision of the future. So Fabiano, thank you so much for presenting your work.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you want to add anything, otherwise we can move on to Undeadlu's work. Cool. So I don't know if we have Undeadlu with us, but these works that she's created is, again, very much in line with what we'd imagine happening in the clods as well. So we wanted to bring these more, this kind of style next to each other, as it was quite fascinating to share what could potentially happen inside those blocks. You know, imagining that in the future, avatars or hybrids will mix organic and inorganic forms of the bodies and try to recreate some form of intelligence from humans. So what Undeadlu has done here is simply imagining what could happen in the lab in the future. And the story that keeps coming back to my head is also around the fact that there's a similarity between the android that we see outside the glass box and the human-looking figure inside, that it's being observed or studied or built. So there's a lot of uncertainty around those looks that we only see from one side, but we do not see the face of those hybrids in the lab. So that's a quite interesting vision. Moving on, we are now into space. So we have an astronaut that is created by Vittorio Bonapace, who might be here with us. I haven't seen Vittorio, but I think he's with us. Bruno, do you see Vittorio somewhere? Or I can go ahead.
No, I think he was experiencing some problem with the connection, so he just said to me that he was coming back. But yeah, we can talk about the artwork or move on as you like.
Absolutely, yes. I'll introduce the work. So in this dystopic vision about the future, Vittorio has created this very, I would say, ironic picture of an astronaut drinking Coke and eating popcorns. And the first question I actually asked to Vittorio when I saw this work was like, how is the astronaut going to drink or eat popcorns? You know, he cannot do it with all the suit. And it was interesting to actually have him telling me. Oh, sorry, I can hear somebody talking. I don't know if it's Vittorio, but so it was funny to hear from Vittorio how he actually imagined this flickering light and these astronauts that we have no idea whether it's real or not, or whether he's actually or they're actually eating or not, or simply just mimicking the habits of humans, as it's, maybe a tradition that could be continued in the future, but possibly doesn't mean anything to people that will live in the future. So that this kind of mistering that is enhanced by the flickering light of a TV or computer or a type of device that takes the center of the scene.
If I can add something about Vittorio's works, what he likes to do is to use the astronaut as the discoverer of new worlds. So as you can see in this artwork, the astronaut is basically living in another planet, but is still, how to say, close to hold items from the Earth in order to, to remember a life that is now very far away. So it's kind of ironic about capitalism and the situation that brought us, basically in this situation. Okay.
True. Yes. Thank you, Bruno, for adding to it. We can now step onto the outer circle and explore the work we see in the here. So the next one is by Giovanni Motta.
Hi.
And I think we have Giovanni as well.
I have a problem with the connection.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I have problem with connection, sorry.
That's okay, no worries. I will introduce the work, and then if there's anything you wish to add, feel free to. So in this work presented by Giovanni, we see a boy that also goes by the name of Johnny Boy. And this boy is imagining the future in a way that is very different from all the works we've seen so far. There's a very, I would say, utopian and dystopian connection between what a boy could dream as a little boy, and imagining the future. But at the same time, it's quite dystopian in the sense that it could look like a nonsense scene where, having an engine taking you to space and a boy could be quite unrealistic. So I love the vision that Giovanni has because it's quite meditative and it's quite, taking us back to what everyone has experienced as a child and really reconnecting us with the inner self and these things that we have as explorers to look into the future with a dream, as if we were dreaming, but at the same time having a real connection to reality. So Giovanni, if you want to add anything to it.
Yes. In reality, my research focuses on the topic of emotional memory. For me, the fact of the past doesn't exist. There is only the emotional memory of the event. And what I try to recover with meditation. With meditation, I recover these emotional memories and then carry them back into my artistic work. Johnny Boy is the protagonist, but Johnny Boy is the inner child of all. And in this work, I only express only one of.
Serena, io non lo sento,
A me è saltato l'audio.
Io non non sento più parlare, Giovanni.
Sorry. I have many problems.
Can you hear me, guys? I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I have.
I just suppose that the platform contains too much people, not the whole platform, but the whole platform. Never happened.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'll continue to do this work. And okay, wonderful. So Giusy here as presented something quite, again, different. And the fact that this was placed next to Giovanni's work and to the next work that we'll also see followed by Catello's work, it was also like a break for us in presenting the collection together, because we're moving from something that looked more meditative and connected, you know, the inner self and our child self, I would say, into something that is way more concrete, real, and has a very cutting edge view into the future. I haven't seen Giusy here, so I don't know if she's around, but she has spent a lot of time and dedication into creating this work, and we can see all the transparency and the bones that form the rib cage of these, you know, I don't know how to call it. It is something that it exists. He has an identity, but at the same time is empty, but it can breathe. So it's interesting to see how things could survive in the future and what will be integrated into the identities of things that will survive beyond us. We see the wings, but also brain and the spine, there's cord spine that sustain the entire body, but at the same time has emptiness inside. So what fascinates me about this work was the fact that it was so rich, but at the same time had rooms for our imagination to fill in all the gaps. And it was aesthetically beautiful to watch, as it really gives a sense of like, you know, something fragile, but at the same time very sturdy, because bones are, you know, really, really hard and sustain our bodies. But at the same time, this is built around air.
Sorry.
So that was my gut feeling when I first saw this work. The next one here is by domenicodalisa. And similarly to what we've seen in Undeadlu's work and Giusy's work, we see a body in a box that also is surrounded by something quite candid, I would say. But then if we notice the work closer, if we step closer to the work, we'll see there are hands holding the body, which is quite, you know, it could be a utopian vision or a dystopian vision. I think aesthetically is very beautiful and very powerful, but at the same time, it could feel quite, you know, intimidating and having a slightly horror vision. So I would love to have Domenico telling us a bit more about their future vision. I saw Domenico here. I don't know if he's still with us.
Serena, I don't think he's here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. But yeah, what he said about his artworks is that probably in the future we will be all obliged to face the sense of the actions we been through our entire life, and the artworks is representing the impossibilities of each of us to deal with all the actions that we've been encountering in our lifetime. So the title of the artwork, which is Apnea, is kind of making a summary about what he thinks the close future will be about. And as you can see, the character is kind of trapped in an aquarium, and everything around him looks black, and so obviously this is a very deep artwork that talks about intimate point of view of humanity and all the actions that can be made in a lifetime.
Thank you so much, Bruno, for this detailed vision into Domenico's work. And also just to remind everyone that you can go and look into videos that have been created by every single artist about the creation of the work and the inspirations of the work. So you can learn definitely more about how every single work has been created. We're moving on to a very special work that I personally really enjoy, which is this work by Catello. And I'm sure, because I know he's with us tonight, he can tell you more about how he has created this work. But when we have selected this work for the Dystopian Vision collection, we simply love the fact that hybrids in the future would be faceless, and the fact that emotions at the same time could take some form of shapes or habits reminiscent of what humans used to be or used to do or taking care of. So we have these faceless figure taking care of flowers, but those flowers are also planted into unexploded bombs. So, Catello, I'll leave to you the rest and introducing all the philosophy that you much love around Asimov and your vision into the future.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Yeah, my work is more on the utopian side of spectrum, if we can say. And Restore Asimov is part of my whole Asimov project. And it's like basically my personal take on how I look at the future and how I see basically the future. Because I imagined a world where like the artificial intelligence in the form of, as you say, the humanoid faceless android, they act in like paying homage to the human being. Once our life on this planet and maybe on the other planets, it's over, because we are as human being are are finite. We can't not live forever, as maybe AI and technology will succeed in that. So I believe that technology is our true sun. It's like our pure extension is like the extension of humanity. As such, they, and when they, I refer to the humanless figure based on the artificial intelligence, they will act in the respect and in the remembrance of what we as human being have done in our lifespan, in our lifetime. Yeah, so basically this is my take on the future, because we sometimes tend to see technology as evil. Maybe as more as we push the technology further, we tend to see that as evil, because it's just like basically uh, turning the human being in something different. But I think that this is for the better. And technology may be like the only take we have to leave a sign, like in the history of the universe. It can be our last, how can I say, like our lost tapes, our deeds written in the yeah, basically in the technology, to live forever as NFT, I hope. Yeah.
We all do. But that's wonderful. Thank you so much for giving a deep explanation about this work. I personally was very moved, and I know people that also saw this in real life were really moved, as this is a static image. However, it's so powerful that really moves on an emotional level. Something that, thank you, led us to connect this work to the next one that we see just next to it is is Lo Schiavo work, which is a performance-based work that has many influences into what we may know performance art has been in the last 100 years. So we see references around Pina Bausch, Viola, and other iconic artwork that if you step closer to the work, you will see animating. At the same time, we have this choreography made by robots, which is so, I would say, has so much attention to details that is extremely moving at the same time. And the conclusion ends with this look, and this performance ends with the disgregation of a CryptoPunk, an imaginary CryptoPunk that is, as in a profession, in a ritual, has been carried by four people, but at the same time, this gets quickly wiped out from the stage, and then a new scene is bound to take place on stage. So I know we have Lo Schiavo here, so maybe you can tell us a bit more about your work.
So thank you all. I cannot hear the audio. So my piece is inspired by a contemporary experimental theater and artists that influenced me during my artistic approach, such as like Bill Viola, Tina Bausch, Robert Wilson, and many others. The scene is the entire project is divided into three main scenes. And from the first one, that is a dancing act, and is inspired by the idea of humans as a social organism, as a super organism. Society as something that precedes the individual. So it is clear that there are many advantages of having a great social organization, and this is actually vital for our species. And as we know also now with COVID, we need to understand that individualism is actually a threat for an overpopulated society. So in this type of act, the first one, there is this orgiastic dance and collaboration between all these humanoids. I'm not going to go all the details for all the objects that are present in the scene. So the second one is actually about domestication and the epigenetic principle that the environment around us also shapes part of our DNA. What, sorry? Oh, okay. The scene is actually inspired by a standard sadomasochistic ideas about power, humiliation, and arousal. Society changes very slowly, so we are not able to make fundamental changes. We absorb. So the actual funnel of the robot becomes a collection point of the urine of our entire society. So for the final act, I staged a procession. So there is a celebrative way to express belongingness, and in this sense, I used an original CryptoPunk that represent the archaeology of digital art, since they represent the 8-bit system with just 24 by 24 pixels, and every pixel is represented in cubes with a materiality to it. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, just let me know. I think so.
Thank you so much, Giuseppe. I think that
thank you
explained well the concept behind this work, and I think it's very harmonious and differently from most of the other work in the collection, has a sequence that is being put together into one work. So it is really like sitting in a theater and watching a performance of the future in which somehow humans have been replicated on stage and become part of the entire NFT work.
As we actually
not
also said
way.
with Serena, we also said that maybe in the future we can actually try to replicate it in real life as well. Why not?
Absolutely, yes. We've been discussing about that, and I would love to see a performance where the audience could somehow control what's happening on stage.
Yes.
Or,
yes.
you know, the other way around, where the stage can control the audience. So
yeah.
I'll wait for that future to become real.
Yeah.
We have Elia's work here next to Lo Schiavo's work, which if you pay attention to this one, you'll see that it does include in this Grains of Time artwork a section of exactly what we could imagine in terms of utopic and dystopic vision into the future. What fascinates me is that on one side you have a very utopian vision and maybe slightly childish, but in a way it has a dreamy feeling. And on the other end, you have a city that is being bombed out, probably, or we can imagine that. And there's a soldier standing on one side and one on the other side, but their uniform is completely different. It belongs to two different times and two different visions. But what connects them to is a clock standing in the middle and a road that leads us to this clock. So it is interesting to see that it really depends on the course of action that we decide to take, whether one vision will be executed in the future or another. So it was an interesting work to present into this collection, as it's comprehensive of both a utopian and dystopian vision. And I don't know if Elia is with us, but you're most welcome to share a few words about the work.
Yeah, no, unfortunately couldn't make it. So, yeah, you know, as Serena was saying, the Grains of Time, it's all about, again, about a kind of view from a human being that finds different choices in his life, and obviously at the end of it encounter something that has to how to say, to give a final talk about the life of a person. And yeah, we have here two soldiers watching this giant kind of digital high, and which is like asking them, you know, what they have in the end of their journey, basically.
Thank you, Bruno, for adding to it. I'd love to move on now to Nicola Scognamiglio work. I saw Nicola is here, wonderful. So when I saw these work, I first, you know, sort of went back to the first time I watched Ready Player One, you know, and the fact that this figure has you know, it could be a VR set or something that could only exist in the future. And it is connecting through a very wide cable through probably the floor that we see lit in bright red on the skyscraper, or what remains of it, in the shadow in the background. If you step closer to the work, you'll see that the figure has an artificial hand. So we are first captured by the human-looking figure of, you know, standing in the middle of the scene. But then at the same time, we come to realize that there's a very inorganic part of the body that is integrated into the figure. So we get to think, you know, on a second thought, that perhaps this is possibly just a vision, or maybe the figure is imagining a world. So we don't know whether this exists or is simply a fantasy, but we'll get Nicola to tell us more about his vision into the future. But I see Leonardo here ready to tell us a bit more about his work, which is God's graffiti. What I can tell you about this work personally is that, my first feeling about it is that, God doesn't necessarily have to take human looks when we think about the creation. And so if you get closer to the work, you'll see that there are bodies dressed, kind of like as they were going to the office, but then all of a sudden they just fall into the emptiness. And these rocks are flying with those bodies at the same time. And I love thinking about the creation of the work in this mode. You may also notice the shape of a guitar, which is built in rocks and bushes. But I get Leonardo telling us more about how he created the work and what's his future vision into this collection. So, Leonardo.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Yeah, the artwork, the meaning of the artwork is exactly what you said. These people were walking in tranquility, and in a second they found out they were in the air or in the water, and that's exactly the point. I created this piece with a kind of atmospheric perspective that doesn't let you understand if this is water or if this is air. So there are some people who are floating, some people who are falling, and other people who don't even understand where they are. So this is what I wanted to explain. I mean, imagine a god that makes the world as he imagines it. So you don't know if it's a good world or if it's a bad world, but it's its own vision. And the great thing is that it might be a dual vision. Some people might like it, some people might not like it. In this image, of course, I tried to figure out, what if I was God? What if I could shape the world as I liked? And I just designed it with one of my passions, with one of my hobbies. So this hobby might be dangerous because maybe I'm the only person that likes it, and maybe I'm destroying the world just to make it, possible. So that's it. I hope that people look at this in a different way. In fact, many people told me, yeah, I see people floating. Other people told me that they see people falling. And that's what really interests me, because every person kind of has a different vision of it. And maybe it's like a mirror, each person finds itself in front of a mirror.
That's very true. I like that it's very unexpected as a vision into the future, the fact that God could create life out of a fall with a guitar in the background. So I can hear the music of the creation. That's what I can say.
Hope one day I'll be good enough at playing guitar.
I wonder what sound that will play. You have to tell us, Leonardo, what music you had in mind when you created this work.
I was listening to the Led Zeppelin. I think that Jimmy Page is the
Not bad.
Not bad.
That's a great inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super, super. Okay, so moving on, we have some glitch. We have Paula Pina's work, Hidden Meaty, and I love the fact, I have to tell you a story about this work. I love the fact that Paula was very open about creating this work together, or at least discussing about how these work would be in its final outcome. And we were in conversation for a couple of times, and we were thinking about the duality of these human going into a toilet and at the same time having a very private moment where she looks into the mirror and she sees herself, but is that her real self? And at the same time, we see a face mask that these days is very familiar to all of us as we've been covering a face, especially a nose and mouth, which takes up a lot of emotions and hides a lot of emotions and a lot about our identity. And in this case, the reflected mirror doesn't show that part. That means that what others see is through our self. But at the same time, the real self is hidden. So it's interesting to notice this duality of personalities. So Paola, if you can tell us a bit more about the work.
Yeah, sure. So I thought what happened, during this year was pretty dystopic, like the lockdown. So without going too far in the future, I thought, what happened to each of us personally was pretty interesting and dystopian in the sense that, we were so forced to be so present with ourselves, and to the point that almost felt suffocating at times. That's why I wanted to portray this avatar in a bathroom, which is it looks like a bit claustrophobic and a bit cold, um, to really portray that moment of like being present with ourselves and self reflection as well. Um, but I also added an element of um, um, futurism, which is that she's an android. So, but you can just lightly see it from beneath the mask, the face mask, that she's an android. But when she looks at herself in the mirror, she's just a normal person. She just interested to discover who she is, basically. And I've also decided to add some text, which is because I love to kind of appropriate elements of gaming in my art. And I thought I kind of got inspired by some video games like Cyberpunk for this one, and just the viewer in an intimate position when looking at the piece.
Paola, yes. And I also have to say that a lot of these blue hair, that's actually something that got my attention. The kind of like feel on the skin, I feel like I could touch this skin and it feels so real, but at the same time so distant from our look. And these questions popping up on screen, it feels like it's a video game, but at the same time, everything else, like the bathroom, the mirror, looks so realistic.
Yeah.
So I love that kind of feeling.
Thank you.
And the next work we have is Teresa's work, which I see here next to me. So this is a work that has much to say as well, in terms of a future vision. We worked together on this work to create a story that could really take us closer to this figure that we see in a desert, in a pink desert. And then as soon as we get close to it, we see that it looks very familiar as it has human figures. But then the posture, it's very unusual. And the clothing is also quite surreal. The colors as well are very specific, but at the same time, the it's the quietness that brings to the scene also captures our attention because of the metal parts in the body that we see sort of coming to the surface of the skin. So we see crystals, we see metals and titanium coming into the skin of this person, which could be of a legend or somebody that has a vision into the future and is there as a portal for us So I would love Teresa to tell us more about her personal vision into the dystopian future.
Tutti, grazie Serena, ma per me va bene così, sono super imbarazzata e scusatemi.
Okay, non preoccuparti. Thank you so much, Teresa, for being here. I hope you can share a few more words in the box chat if you wish, but I also wanted to say that this work is so powerful and people loved it to see in real life at Canby. It really created a strong connection and emotions, especially with women, I would say. I've seen many women connecting with this work very closely. Because in some ways, I think we have a close feeling onto what future holds. And I think we have these kind of like the wise man that we always called like wise man. Why could it not be a woman, you know? And I think that definitely takes the shape of what we see in Teresa's work. We are now having the last work from this collection, which is Annibale's work. And I know Annibale is also here in the room, but had some issues with the audio. Annibale, can you hear us? I don't know if you can, but this work that concludes a journey and the curatorial tour is called Hollow and is Annibale Siconolfi's work. What captured me about these work specifically is the connection that Annibale sees into the future between nature and an anthropomorphic scene. So there are skyscrapers and mountain and valleys that sort of englobate the city, and it feels like this lies has been kept in a way to show us what's going on underground. So it's interesting to see something that could happen, but could also be completely hidden. And how nature in this very utopian future vision, I would say, is actually embracing life and incorporating life within nature, which I think it is something that we wanted to conclude this journey with. You know, we opened with Fabio Capatano, where you know, the reminiscence of art, classical art, and data was merged together, and we wanted to conclude with something that could embrace nature and bring a utopian vision into the future, embracing life and what has been created artificially by humans in an harmonious way with nature. So I'm very fond of this work because it definitely brings a lot of tranquility and gives me personally a very optimistic view into the future. But Annibale, if you want to share a few more words about this work, you're most welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm having problems with audio, so I hope you can hear me. This work, as many of my works, I tried to represent the coexistence between man and nature. So the coexistence between nature and man is increasing problematic, managing the consequence of this complex relationship that could potentially lead to extreme solution. How gives to the viewer a reaction into a future in which the problem of overpopulation could make us completely rethink the way of conceiving urban architecture, integrating the surrounding landscapes. The upper part of the position represents the lower part represents the men, while the central part take place. Actually, the dark and mysterious Thunderlane give you. So
Hey Bruno, everyone. I don't know, but I had real troubles hearing Annibale talking.
Probably in the end they couldn't be able to fix the connection. But we have back Nicola, so if you all want, we can move back to his artwork and have the last talk about Nicola's artwork, and then we can talk a little more about the operation. And okay,
That's good. Okay. Nicola, you with us?
Yeah, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
we do.
Amazing, guys.
We can take a shortcut.
Yeah, so basically just as what Serena said about my artwork. Wait. You hear also the background noises, right?
Yes.
Sorry for that. Shit. Okay, guys, this is amazing. Like, now basically what Serena spoke right about the artwork. So it's just the idea of a guy connected with this probably VR lenses, which is kind of merged into a virtual reality. And yeah, just try to dive into the dystopian world itself, just researching about the word itself, what dystopia means. So I just try to make this most dystopic vision I could. And that's it. I can kind of be fascinated by what's the future will be. So how can be all of us alone in virtual realities while the world is destroying around us? So yeah, that was the idea.
Super. Thank you so much, Nicola, for coming back to your work and
Bruno for this opportunity.
sharing the vision.